Hi everyone, in this session we are going to learn how to create project in GitLab. So I'm currently in a group level here and you can see that I have only one project, that is GitLab demo, that we created in previous course when we were looking at how to create projects, groups and all those. But in this session what we're going to do is we are going to see all the different ways by which we can create or import an existing project in the GitLab. So I'm in the group right now, okay, and if I click on new project, it will show you the different ways where we can create a new project. We can create a blank project which will have nothing in it. It will just have the repository. And next we have another option is to create a project using existing template. Okay, what it means is that if you want to create a Spring Boot application, then you can choose a Spring Boot template and that will create all the default structure that a Spring Boot application has. Okay, and similarly if you want to create a Angular application, for example, then you can just choose that template and that will create all the default structure of the Angular app. So that way you can use template and it's really kind of handy way of creating the application. The third way is to import an existing application. So assume that you have a project in GitHub or Bitbucket or any other repository, so and you want to move to GitLab. So what you can do is you can just enter the URL and import it into the GitLab repository. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to see all these three ways of creating a new project. In addition to this, what we'll do is we'll also try to push an existing project that we already have and we are working on it, and that will push to the GitLab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Eclipse IDE. That is basically STS that I'm using. It is built on top of Eclipse. So I'm going to use this IDE to create the project and push and import changes or the repository to GitLab. We'll see how we can communicate from your IDE to the GitLab repository. Okay, so let's start with the very first way of creating a project, that is create a blank project. I'm going to name this as GitLab demo app. Okay, instead of this I would just leave it as a demo app. Okay, and I'm using the group and the project slug. So project slug is particular, I can give it like this instead of any hyphen, and the visibility I'm using as private. Okay, now you can have different visibility here. You can have private and you can have internal and public, but my group being private, I can, the visibility level that I see is only private. Okay, depending, it basically inherits from the visibility that you have at the group. If your group is public, you can see all the three options. Okay, currently my group is private, so I see just private here. Okay, so I will hit on create project. Okay, so the project is now created. Now it will give you some commands that you can use to get this, or you can to clone this repository to your workstation. Okay, and the option that we have is we can clone it using SSH or HTTP. Now to use SSH, what we need to do is we need to configure the SSH key. That we'll be looking into it in future sessions, but for now what we're going to do is we're going to use HTTP. So I'll copy this and I'll go to my IDE, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say import projects. Now I would select under Git projects from Git, and I'll select the with smart import and click on next. I would say clone URI, next, and it will automatically copy the whatever you have copied in the clone here. it will place it in the URI. Now one thing that we need to change is the host name. So the host name here, what we have is this. So let's copy this and put it here. Okay, so let's remove this. Now fine, so everything is good. The only thing is, I guess we are having double slash here. Let's remove that too. Now the username is the one that you logged in to your account. I have logged in with team lead user account, and I'll click on next, and it will ask you for the local destination of your Git. So this is my local repository, so I would say next and finish. So you can see that now I have the repository that is from my GitLab. So currently, this is a blank project, so you don't see anything within it. It's just an empty folder. Okay, now to view this, all the configuration and setting, what you can do is you can enable the Git Perspective, and the way to do is, by default it's not enabled. So what you can do is you go to Window, Perspective, and you can say Customize Perspective, and in this you'll have this Git. Initially it will be unchecked, so what you can do is go to Action Set Availability. In that you can check the Git option, and then you can see all the Git features in your menu bar here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Git Perspective here, and you can see this, that okay, this is something that I have from the previous one, so I'll just remove this. I don't need. Okay, so this is something that we just created. Okay, and you can see that currently I don't have any branches in the local or in the remote. The remote I have is master though. Okay, let's see, what do I have? Okay, in the remote I don't have any branch. Okay, so if you look at the remote, here is where my configuration is. It says pull and push. The two configuration that I have is to my repository in GitLab. So this is how you can view your configurations. Again, the branches, you can see you can have local and remote. Currently we don't have any branches. It's all a freshly created project, so we don't have any branches right now, and that's the reason why you don't see any branches. Then we have is the remote, where you can see the configuration is origin. Origin is something, but we named it as origin, and where we have pull configured as well as push configured. Okay, so now what you can do is you can go back to your Java perspective, and you can, on top of this project, you can add your changes and then push these changes to your repository. So working on push and pull, that we'll be looking into the in our future session, but this being just to show you how to create projects and import it into your IDE. So this is how you can do, this is how you can create a project, a blank project. Now let's try to create another project here, and this time I'm going to use the template. And the template, you can see that there are many templates here. As I said, you can also, I don't think so, there is Angular, I believe, which I said before. Is there Angular? Okay, I don't see one here, but you do have something called Node.js Express. Okay, but yeah, but we do have something called as Spring. So let's use this template, and I would name this as Spring Demo Web. Okay, and I'm going to use the group as my project URL, and the project slug is going to be project demo web. And again, here you cannot, even though it's showing you all this visibility, you can choose only private because my group is private. Okay, let's create the project. and you can see it's saying import in progress. And yes, you can see that we have all the default um, structure for a Spring application. It will also give you some a template for Docker file if you are using Docker container to deploy your application, and it will also have a default pom.xml file and all those, so you can just update this and get it to what get it to as per your requirement. So I hope you're getting this, how to create a project from template. Now let's clone this. Again, I'm going to use HTTP, and here I'm going to say import. I'll right click on the IDE and then say import. Same, I'm going to use projects from Git, clone URI, and I'm going to change the host name here. Okay. And here I'm going to say okay. So you can also save this in the secure store, so you don't need to re-enter your credentials, but for now I just keep entering my credentials. Okay, so you have one branch called master in the remote. You can see here we have one master branch, so that's the reason why it's showing you that branch here. And next, and it's going to create a local repository for you, which the initial branch is going to be master, and I'm naming that as origin. You can name your anything that you want, but I'll keep it the default, and then finally finish. Okay, so it's building up, and you can see that we have a sample Spring web application, and now you can start editing or updating your project and then work with your template project. Okay, so this is the fastest way where you can have a ready-made application using template feature and then get going with your application. Okay, next we have is let's go to the third option, that is import an existing project. Now for this, it will ask you that if you have a repo already, that it's a URL, or if you're having a Bitbucket server or any application that is deployed into, any application that you want to import, you need to have the URL. Okay, so I already have my application from my previous course that is deployed in GitHub, so I'm going to just use that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and clone it. I'm going to use HTTP here, come back here and say repo by URL. I'm going to use the URL here. I don't need the username and password because this is already a public repository. And project name, I'm going to keep this as the same. All default looks good, it's just the project URL. Okay, now I'm going to say create project. So again, the import is in progress. Perfect. So now you can see that the application is imported to my GitLab repository. Let's see if all the branches are imported. Yes, you can see that all the branches are also cloned. So if you go back here, we do have all those branches in GitHub, and the same branches we do have here too. So this is the quickest way if you're migrating from another repository like GitHub or Bitbucket. You can, if you want to migrate to GitLab, there is also an option to do that. Okay, so with that, we saw all the three ways of creating a project in GitLab. Let's do one more demo of creating a project that we already have or we are working on, and we want to push that project to the GitLab. So let's assume here I am working on a project. Let's say I'm creating a new project, Spring Starter project, and I would name this as let's say this Spring RESTful Web. Okay, and I'll keep this as jar file, and everything looks fine. Next, and I would say next, finish. So this is just something like, you're creating an application, you're developing everything, all the changes, and now you want to push this application which is in your local, and you want to push that to the GitLab. Okay, so you have this application. Now what you can do is right click, and before that what we have to do is go to your repository and create a project. Okay, let's name this as, it's basically creating a blank project to say Spring Web. What did we name this as? Spring RESTful Web. RESTful Web, and I would say create project. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I am going to use this later, but for now let's go back here and right click, team, share project. So currently we don't have any options. Okay, you mean to what I mean to say is this application is not Git initialized. So what we're going to do is we're going to initialize the application. So first thing is you need to right click and then say team, share project, and now this will ask you to configure Git repository. So the easiest and fastest way of configuring and pushing the application without any issue to GitLab is, what I would do is I would use or create repository in parent folder of project. It would say that creation of repository in the Eclipse workspace is not recommended, but for now I would say just leave as it is and just say create project. Okay, so that is gone. So let's say finish. Now it's created. Okay, so you can see that you have a Git initialized project in your workspace. Okay, with having a master branch. Fine. Now this is, everything is local right now. Okay, nothing is configured with your GitLab repository. Okay, so next step what we're going to do is we are going to configure the push and pull, right? Push and pull, that is nothing but your origin. So if you look at here, let's go to Git Perspective, and this is your repository that you configured, and the branches you have is local and remote tracking, and remote is nothing right now. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a remote, and we'll call it as origin, and it will ask you for the URI. Let's change it, and now here I'll copy this, I'll clone the one that we created, Spring RESTful Web App, and then paste it here. I'll change the host name because that's what we have. Okay, and then I'm going to enter my credentials. Perfect, and then I would say finish, and I would say save. So now you can see here we have the pull and the push configured. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do the next step. The next step is, you can see in the Git staging area where you can see all the unstaged changes. What it means is, in your project that you created, you configured the Git in your local. All this needs to be indexed, or to say that we need to have an index for this. That's how the Git would know that it would do the version controlling thing. Okay, so all these changes we can click on add all the files, to our staging area. This is your stage changes. And if you look at this, the Git Ignore, this is something that will ignore basically all the files that are not required in your repository. Okay, you don't want a class path files or the project files or anything that is related to your IDE that you don't want to push into the GitLab. So that is something that gets added. And now what we're going to do is we're going to give the commit message. I would say this as initial commit, and I would say commit and push. So what this commit and push is going to do is it's going to commit to your local repository, and the push is going to do is it's going to push your changes to your remote, that is origin project repository, that is here. Okay, and the commit, if you look at the commit, it's just going to do a local commit. Fine. So let's do commit and push. Now I would say preview, and I would say push. So it says push to the repository, and I would say close, and you can see here the branch master is now created because you did the commit, which created the local branch, and the push did the push of your it moved all your local changes to the repository. So let's refresh this and see, and you can see that all your files are now in the GitLab. Okay, and it says there's result of the 34 seconds ago. That means initial commit was done. So that's how we create and push an existing application to the GitLab repository. So we saw all the 4 ways in which we can we can push our changes to GitLab repository, right? And we can see all the projects that we created here. Okay, hope that was clear, and that's all for this video. I'll see you in the next session. Till then, take care. Bye.